How's it going, guys? I'm James from Kit Guru, and today I'm having a bit of a treat. These boxes are all packed with new Corsair goodies. I'm not entirely sure exactly what is inside these boxes, but I do know there is some new Hydro X stuff in here, so that's kind of the reason for this video. Corsair has been hoping that we would take a look at these for a while, so let's jump in and see what's actually inside. So I think I'll start with the big box first. Yeah, and like I said, it is packed full. So we've got some front panel white extension kit leads, another front panel extension kit. We've got some Vengeance Pro RGB DDR4. What are these? Some premium cable comb kit in black. Another cable comb kit. And then we've got some XF adapters. There's some 90-degree angle adapters. Oh, so this is one of the main reasons for this video. This is the new XC7 RGB White CPU block, new Hydro X part, and it's kind of a refresh of the original XC7 that was launched, I think it was in the summer of last year. It has a nickel-plated copper base with, I think there's 60 or more micro-skived fins. There is also RGB lighting, of course. With Corsair gear, you're going to have some RGB lighting. I think there's 16 addressable RGB LEDs in this. Obviously, again, Corsair stuff. Control that with the IQ software. The block is compatible with Intel 11.5X and AMD AM4 platforms. I'm sure Corsair do another CPU block, another one of these. I think it's an XC7, and I think they do an XC9 for high-end desktop platforms as well. The XC7 RGB White, that comes with standard G1/4" fittings, and there is just obviously inlet and outlet on the top. And the reason for this new version, obviously, it's a refresh with a new white top kind of plastic cover. So yeah, that will be interesting to have a look at and see what we can do with that. We've got some more adapters. There's a Y splitter and a ball valve. We've also got 3 of these ML120 Pro LED fans. These are not RGB, but they are just a white LED fan, and they're a high static pressure fan, so they're good for using on radiators. So there's 3 of those. Another one of the new products. It's not technically new. Again, it's more of a refresh than something that's actually brand new. Again, this was launched last summer. The XD5 originally was in black. Now you can get the XD5 RGB in white. So that's nice if you want to build a white theme system. Again, this is much of the same as the original one. It has obviously the refreshed white colour scheme. It includes a genuine D5 pump, so you know you've got a good high performance and reliable pump in there. There's also RGB lighting. I believe the RGB lighting is built into this top section. Maybe it's along the bottom as well, but there's a total of 10 addressable RGB LEDs in there. It takes power from a Molex power connection, and the reservoir is 330ml water capacity, so that's nice and healthy volume you've got there. More fittings, more straight fittings. These are actually all compression fittings for soft tubing, so I think we may be building a system with some soft tubing to use these in. I'll probably try and use as many of those as I can to avoid having too long a runs of soft tubing. More fittings. Pro PSU Cable Kit, again in white. There seems to be a bit of a theme running here. We have a lot of white bits, so it looks like we might be building some system with a white theme. And we've got a XR5 360mm radiator. So yeah, that's nice. We'll be using that. This is a interesting new product from Corsair. This is the XD3 RGB. It's a pump reservoir combo, and it's designed for small form factor systems or for liquid cooling builds where space is pretty limited. You can mount this in your standard 120mm or 140mm fan locations, and you can see it has quite a similar appearance as the XC7 CPU block. So yeah, we'll have a look at that in a bit more detail as well. Some more fittings, more 45-degree fittings, some more straight connectors, and then we've got these new fans. So yeah, we've got the QL120 RGB fans. These are probably the nicest looking fans I've seen. These are available in 120mm and 140mm versions. The single ones are £29.99 for the 120s and £34.99 for the 140s. The 120s are also available in a 3-pack, and that comes with the Lightning Node core, and they're £99.99. You can also get the QL140s in a twin pack with a Lightning Node core for £89.99. So yeah, they're a nice looking fan. So we'll take those out of the box in a bit and have a look. Oh, very nice. So we have the MP600 PCIe Gen 4 M.2 drive. This is the 500GB version. That will definitely go in our build. What else do we have? Commander Pro, we all know what these are for. These are for plugging in your fans and controlling your RGB and fan speeds and everything. And another box of QL120 RGB fans, so we got 6 of those now. There's also more fittings and fill port, more straight compression fittings, angle compression fittings, and that's actually not some RAM. It is a Vengeance Pro Light Enhancement Kit. So this is obviously to stick in your unpopulated DIMMs to make it look like there are DIMMs in there, and they light up just like the Vengeance Pro RGB RAM does as well. We've also got some XL5 Performance Coolant, some clear, and some more fittings. We've obviously got the RM850X Power Supply, so that's going in the system as well, and then a coil of this XT softline clear tubing, which we will be using in the build. So let's have a bit of a closer look at these new parts. I think we'll look at the XC7, the new white CPU block first. So yeah, let's have a look what's inside here. So with the XC7, you've got a warranty guide, a user manual, you've got these brackets that look very similar to an Acertech style design. There's obviously one for AM4, one for Intel, and then there's a back plate, mounting back plate, looks like an Intel mounting plate, could be for both platforms, like a mounting screws, and then the actual CPU block itself. Looks like that comes with the Intel bracket pre-installed. So a little bit unusual for a custom CPU block. There's actually a pre-applied thermal compound on the base of this XC7. Possibly that is to make the installation procedure a little bit simple, and Corsair is trying to probably simplify the whole custom loop building thing. You can obviously see there's a large nickel plated copper base plate there, and according to Corsair there's over 60 micro skived fins, cooling fins in there, and there's obviously a transparent water chamber, and then you've got this plastic white top cover. You can see there's your standard G1/4" fittings, inlet and outlets, and then a proprietary Corsair connection for the RGB lighting. There is a total of 16 individual addressable RGB LEDs in here, Obviously that will be controlled by the Corsair iQ software, just like all the other iQ and all the other Corsair stuff. The XC7 is compatible, like I said, with Intel 11.5X and AM4 platforms, and it's priced at £74.99, so it's not bad value, I suppose. So moving on to the new XD5 RGB White pump reservoir combo. This again is more of a refresh of the previous version, or the original version in black, but just with, as you can see, new white, like a new section at the base and a new white section at the top, which has got RGB lighting in the top as well. Something that I'm not too keen on looking at straight away. These cables running from the top, they're going to be a bit tricky to probably hide. And then it's obviously a 4-pin PWM speed control there and Molex power connector. You might be able to see at the base, these are the mounting points at the base, and they're kind of a rubberized mounting point to help with the vibration. And then you've got a genuine Xylem D5 pump there, so good quality pump, reliable pump. And then you've got this plastic or acrylic reservoir that's 330ml capacity. You can see at the top you've got, that's actually an inlet port, that can be used for an inlet port, and then there's a fill port, and then there's another inlet and outlet port on the front. And you also have an extra port here, I'm not sure whether that's inlet, outlet, or whether that is just for a drain, maybe. And then I think on the back, this is designed for the water, the coolant temperature that comes with the pump reservoir. So that's quite a nice looking thing. I've always quite liked the look of these hydraulics parts. They are a little bit different to your standard cylindrical reservoirs, so yeah, I think that'll look nice in our build. Obviously I think we're going to be doing a bit of a white and black theme. So there's also some mounting screws that come with this, and then some blanking plugs, 24-pin connector there so you can short it out and check if your system's leaking before you power it on. There's also an included coolant temperature sensor, and then one of the mounting brackets. And then there's your usual user manual. And then a couple of 120mm and 140mm mounting brackets. Then we've got probably the most interesting bit. This is the new XD3 RGB pump reservoir combo, and this is designed for your smaller form factor systems, or just in a system where space is a little bit limited. This is priced at £150.99 at the moment, and you can order this right away. So let's have a look and see what's included inside this. So first off, you've got the 120 and 140mm mounting brackets, same as with the XD5 reservoir. And another warranty guide and manual. There's another mounting bracket there as well. And then the actual pump reservoir unit. It's quite interesting. The appearance of this is very similar to the XC7 water block. You can see there, they're very similar looking. So around the back of the unit you've got a DDC pump that's powered by a Molex connector, and then there is a 4-pin PWM speed control and your Corsair RGB connections. You've got obviously standard G1/4" fittings, inlet and outlet on the front. There's a fill port at the top. I believe that these side ports, you can see on either side, they're also inlet and outlet. And then at the bottom you've got another port for the water temperature sensor. So yeah, it's quite a nice looking thing that. I think the capacity of this is 180 millilitres, thereabouts. It's got this nice opaque or transparent chambering again, much like the XC7. So yeah, it's a nice looking little unit that, and that will no doubt come in handy in those kind of builds where you're struggling for space. I don't think that we'll be able to use this in our build today, but definitely this will be something I'll be featuring in a build in the future. So last but not least, we come to the QL120 RGB fans. These are really nice looking fans. Let's have a look. Where's my knife? Let's see what's in these. So this little box that comes in the top of the 3-pack kit is, there's a lighting node core, so you plug all the fans RGB lighting into that and then control that with the Corsair IQ software. You've got a bunch of fan screws and user manual, warranty information. And then with the 3-pack kit, you've obviously got 3 fans. These are the 120mm versions, and that's what they look like. So yeah, a nice looking fan. These have got a total of 4 RGB zones. There's a ring around the front, a ring around the back. The back of the hub actually lights up as well, so if you have these facing that way in your case, you've got a bit of RGB lighting, so the back of these fans probably looks a little bit nicer than some other fans. And then obviously the front hub and these opaque fan blades, they also light up with RGB lighting. On all the 4 corners you've got your rubberized anti-vibration mountings, and then there's a 4-pin speed control and power connector and your Corsair RGB lighting connector. So in terms of the specification of these 120mm versions, you've got PWM speed control with a speed range of 525 to 1500 RPM, a maximum airflow of 41.8 cubic feet per minute, and like I've already said, RGB lighting, maximum noise levels are 26 decibels, and like I mentioned before, singles are $29.99 and the 3-pack is $99.99. So that's all the details of these new bits out of the way. I think what we'll do now is crack on with the build. I'm guessing the black and white theme. It'd seem silly not to do that with all these new white bits we've got. I'm thinking maybe AMD Ryzen 3950X X570. Yeah, sounds good. So let's crack on. here it is. We've put together a relatively simple CPU only loop using the XC7 White CPU block, the XD5 pump reservoir combo, a few of the white compression fittings, soft tubing, and the XR5 360mm radiator. Inside the system there is also an ASUS ROG Strix X570E gaming motherboard, an AMD Ryzen 9 3950X CPU. Graphics is a Gigabyte RTX 2070 Super gaming OC card, and the storage drive is the Corsair MP600 PCIe Gen 4 M.2 SSD. We also use two of the QL120 Corsair fans. You can see there's one in the top and one at the rear acting as an exhaust, and powering the system is the Corsair RM850X Power Supply. Along the front of the case as well, attached to the 360mm radiator, we've got the three ML120 Pro LED 120mm fans. The main reason why we just built a simple CPU loop is so that we can test the thermal performance of the HydroX parts without the interference of the additional heat from the GPU. Also, at the moment, the selection of GPU blocks from Corsair is rather limited, and there's not one available for our Gigabyte RTX 2070 at the moment. But saying that, there's no reason, if you wanted to add in a GPU to the loop, you could, obviously, because this uses standard G1/4" fittings, you could use one from a different manufacturer. There's no problem with that. During the installation of the HydroX loop, we didn't really come across any major issues. The only one slight problem that we did encounter was a slight interference with the pump mounting bracket and the graphics card. Now, that's not really a fault with the HydroX system at all. That's more down to our choice of GPU and case, and we managed to get around it by doing a bit of a modification to the bracket and simply just taking an angle grinder to it and chopping a piece off, and that gave us the extra 10 or 15 millimeters of space that we needed to fit the pump reservoir at the front of the case where we wanted to put it. Other than that, the whole build was pretty straightforward, and all the bits and pieces, went together perfectly well, and yeah, it was quite a pleasure to build. As you can see at the moment, we've got the rainbow effect lighting, and that's obviously all synchronized with the QL fans, the pump reservoir combo, the XC7 block, so they're all working perfectly well. And because the Corsair iQ software now supports ASUS components, we also managed to configure the RGB lighting on the motherboard to work in synchronization with everything else, which is really nice to see, and it's probably about time that manufacturers got together so that it makes it easier for you to synchronize all your RGB lighting, because it can be a bit of a pain at the moment if you've got to run 3 or 4 different bits of software, and this kind of just simplifies that for you. So that's good. So move on to testing the thermal performance. I'm not going to go through the whole testing process on this video, but you can go over to the Kit Guru website, check out the written review, and all the details of the process, the testing process, are on there. However, to give you a brief rundown, what we'll be doing is testing the HydroX system in its current configuration, and we'll compare that against an Acertech based, a Gen 6 Acertech based 360mm closed loop cooler, and that's from Fractal Design. That's the Celsius Plus S36. To try and keep the testing as consistent as possible, we'll be using the same ML120 fans that we have on the custom loop. We'll be using those on the S36 radiator, and as well as testing against a closed loop system, we're also going to compare the performance using the Noctua NHD15 dual tower air cooler, and again, to try and keep the system in the same configuration for consistency, we'll leave the 3 ML120 Pro fans at the front of the case for intake. So to test the thermal performance, we've set up 3 profiles in the ASUS motherboard BIOS, with the CPU configured at 3.5 GHz and 1.15 volts VCore, and then 3.9 GHz with 1.2 volts VCore, and then an overclock frequency of 4.3 GHz at 1.25 VCore. We've set load line calibration to level 5, so that the voltage doesn't fluctuate during the test, and again that's to keep things as consistent as possible. With these 3 different configurations and voltage settings, we'll then run AIDA64, stressing the CPU, cache and the FPU for 20 minutes, and then we'll take the average temperature of each cooler at the 3 different frequencies and compare them against each other. And then, as well as the AIDA64 test, we'll also run a Cinebench R20 loop for 10 minutes to kind of see how the 3 different cooling solutions perform in a kind of real world multitasking or multi-threaded workload. So during our initial thermal performance test with the AMD Ryzen 9 3950X set at an all-core base frequency of 3.5 GHz, the HydroX loop pulls out a slender lead by keeping the CPU temperature approximately 60 degrees cooler than its closest competitor, which was the Noctua NHD15. And then with the Ryzen 9 3950X all-core frequency bumped up to 3.9 GHz, it's unsurprising that the HydroX custom loop again produces around 6 degrees cooler CPU temperature compared with the D15 during the AIDA64 stress test. The D15 and the 360mm closed loop cooler are pretty evenly matched, with just a couple of degrees separating them. And then with the 3950X configured to an all-core frequency of 4.3 GHz, the HydroX really starts to stretch its legs by recording over 8 degrees lower average CPU temperature compared with the Celsius Plus S36, which then holds off the NHD15 at this higher frequency. And this proves that, like any good quality custom cooling loop, the HydroX loop is superior at cooling overclocked CPUs. So yeah, overall I'm quite impressed with these new parts from Corsair. I particularly like the new QL120 fans. They give you that option to have them installed in the front of the case, blowing in, and they've got the RGB lighting on the back, which makes that back side of them look quite attractive, unlike a lot of other fans on the market. The new white XC7 and XD5 parts, I quite like them as well. They obviously, if you're looking to build a white theme custom loop, then you've got a great option there, and there's no reason why you can't mix and match these parts with GPU blocks or other bits and bobs from other manufacturers, since they use the standard G1/4" fittings. So as I mentioned previously, during the installation, everything fit together as it should do. There were no major issues with components not being compatible or any interference with other components in the system. The only slight issue that we did come up against was obviously brought on by ourselves with the choice of the case and the GPU, but we managed to get around this, and the end product for a simple CPU loop looks, pretty nice. And as you saw in our earlier thermal performance test, the HydroX custom loop, it performed as you would expect. It probably may have been a more stern test to compare this against a custom loop from another manufacturer, but at least you can see that it quite clearly outperforms a traditional closed loop or a dual tower air cooler. And obviously, like we said, that's what you'd expect it to do. I hope you've enjoyed this build and review video of these new HydroX parts and QL120 fans. If you have, then give us a like and hit the subscribe button. You can also head over to our Facebook page where you can discuss what you think of these new products from Corsair and have a look at our previous reviews. I've been James for Kit Guru. Thank you for watching.